Hello, Smarties. Now, why do I say Smarties? Because my company is Smart Girls Productions, and if you're watching this, then you're smart. See, Smart Girls Productions, you got to have it all in the branding. When it comes to marketing, you got to do the branding. And yes, there are some days that I'm not so smart, but smart is still in the name and it's still in the brand. All right, so today I want to talk to you about the 3 critical components of effective follow-up in Hollywood. Okay, let me start. And by the way, this can also apply to any kind of business or career that you're pursuing, even dating. But I'm specifically going to be talking about some of the things about how this applies for an acting or screenwriting career. Let me first start by saying that I know that most people, whether it's in Hollywood or something else, most people do not like marketing. Okay, now I happen to love marketing, but there are still tasks for me that I don't like to do to market my own company. But as someone pursuing a career and building relationships with your clients or prospects or whatever, you got to do some of these things. And before I give you what the 3 things are, there's another very important element to understand, and that is that in sales or booking jobs or any kind of marketing, most of the time you're going to have anywhere, I've heard different numbers, 5 to 13, 5 to 7 contacts with someone before they either hire you or make a purchase, that kind of thing. That's why for actors, if you go out on commercial auditions, no telling how many auditions you actually have to go out on before someone hires you. Back in the day, I recall it was nothing for someone to go out on 50 auditions before they got before they booked a job for commercials. And sometimes when it was a big commercial, it might even be that over time they had to go out for a lot more auditions to get some of the big campaigns. Okay, now I don't know exactly what it is now because so many things have changed. But the point is, you've got to make contacts with people over and over until they start to know who you are. Okay, so when I'm going to be talking about follow-up here, then that is what I'm referencing. Like, what are the 3 critical elements of doing this follow-up to keep in touch with people? Now, specifically, what I'm going to be thinking about today is when I work with actors and writers, I help them put together an introductory letter, either about their screenplay or for the actor introducing themselves to agents and managers. So I'm going to talk about follow-up in that sense. Basically, when you've sent out a cold contact to an agent or a producer and how you need to approach that in terms of your follow-up. And these 3 things, it's a very they're very broad things. And I go into more detail elsewhere, but I really just want to get this in the realm of like the mindset. Okay, so the first thing is that when you do your marketing, you've got to be all in with your self-belief and what you're up to. Like somehow, if you're worried that someone's not going to like your screenplay, or if you're worried that I don't know if I'm good enough for these agents. And it's okay. It's natural as human beings to question whether we're up to the task. So I'm not saying that you shouldn't have any self-doubt, but what I'm saying is you've got to get to the point where that that's just kind of something going on in your head. And if you really think, I just don't think my acting skills are there, then you just take a class. Or if you think your screenplay is not ready, then you just got to keep working on it until you can get to that point where it's just like these little conversations buzzing around in your head, that it's just like, it's not necessarily grounded in reality. It's just that kind of normal thing that we all have at times, at one time or another, where I'm not really sure, and then you can put that aside. So again, it's about, you got to be all in your self-belief so that you can put any doubts aside and just go for it. You don't want to start doing these kinds of follow-ups with people that you might want to talk to and be afraid about it. Okay, so so you just got to get to that point Sometimes you might need coaching to help you get past it, or screenwriters, you got to make sure that your work has been vetted by someone other than you. Like, for instance, I do script analysis. There are a lot of script analysts who will help you find out whether your script is ready to go or not. Okay, so that's a way to help you be all in and actually give you the credibility that, in fact, it is ready. And the same with your acting coaches. They can say, okay, I think you're ready. But after you've been doing this for a while as an actor, you're probably going to be ready to audition. Okay, now the second thing is when you're going through a process and you are going to do your follow-up, you've got to have some strategy about how you're going to do this follow-up. It is much harder if you, let's say you send emails out to target someone and then you don't get the response you want, or you don't get as many responses you want, to sit back and then start thinking about, oh, what should I do? How should I follow up? It's much more challenging then when, if you don't hear responses, now you feel kind of rejected already. So that's not the best time to actually plan for your follow-up. It's better to actually plan ahead about what you're going to do. When I work with writers, and actually with actors too, one of the things that I offer in the package that I give with the service is I give you a set of template emails. So it says, send this one. If you don't hear back, then send this one on day 7 to 10. And if someone asks for your materials, but then they don't respond, and do this. So I give you an idea so that that part is handled. But if you're not using my service, you can do it on your own. The point is, you don't want to wait until you're in the middle of everything and then go, oh no, what do I do? You want to work this out ahead of time so you can keep your positive outlook and you can just keep following up. Because especially if you're not that crazy about marketing, which most writers want to write and most actors want to act, right? So that's why you want to have this ready ahead of time so you don't have to get in your head and worry about it. So again, number 2 is plan your strategy for the follow-up ahead of time. Draft up the template emails that you will use. And then it'll be much easier to execute, even plan out, okay, here's what I'm going to send my next follow-up out, and that type of thing. And if you do that, then it'll make it much easier to begin to do your follow-up plan. Okay, now number 3 is to be consistent and persist. But there's a caveat here. Okay, I was thinking about this when I was getting ready to record this video. I thought, yeah, like dating, you got to be persistent and consistent and something like that. But really, it's not just a blanket be persistent. It's until someone says no. Now, if you're pursuing someone that you want to date and they say no, 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 I mean, you got to figure out, maybe it is some persistence. I don't know. But with a producer or with an agent, if they say no on this round of the marketing that you're doing, if they say no, 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 then you just take it as a no and you move on. And the point being, though, let's say, particularly what I'm talking about when I say be persistent and be consistent and persist, is that if you are writing an email to someone, which is how most of the communication is done now in Hollywood also, if you're writing them an email and you don't hear back, okay, if they hear back and say, no, I don't like your idea, then you let it go, you move on. But if you don't hear back, that is when you want to be persistent. They may have missed an earlier email. They may not have been interested. But sometimes if you keep following up, then that person will become interested. As part of your marketing, as part of your, and this is really a little bit more in the realm of sales. I'm just sort of lumping it into marketing. But if you have a list of your target agents, managers, or producers, especially if it's the one that I have given you where it's a very targeted focus list, then the idea is that you keep following up with each and every one of them until you get a no or a yes. And And that's really it. You be consistent and persist until you get an answer, until you get the yes or no. In general, just to show you how it translates in general in sales, that's like when you make a sales call. Let's just step aside from the film industry for a moment. If you make a sales call on whatever it might be, and let's say you're selling cars, and you call someone who came in and looked at that car, and they're like, I'm still thinking about it. Okay, well, you just haven't completed the sales job. But at some point, they're going to say, no, I've decided I don't want that car. I can't afford it. Or they're going to say, yes, let's do the deal. But until you get either a definitive yes or no, then it's an incomplete communication. Okay, so that's what I mean. So let's go over these three things again. The critical components. Now, these are three critical components that I just kind of was thinking about and came up with. It's not like the definitive one and only critical components, set of three critical components. Okay, so again, when you are following up in Hollywood on a career, you want to be all in. So if you already know you don't like that agent, then don't try to approach them. Okay, so you want to be all in on what you're doing and all in on your self-belief. Okay, if you already think, oh, I should have gotten better headshots, you need to just wait then. Okay, so you got to make a definitive decision and then have that self-belief, get things out of the way so you can be there, and then you follow up. You make a plan for your follow-up strategy before you start your whole campaign. And then number 3, you persist and you're consistent in your follow-up. So you don't want to just let's say you email some of these agents and then you don't follow up for 3 weeks. That's not really what I'm talking about by being consistent. You want to set that plan up and then you follow through until you get a no or a yes from each of these people. And of course, if you get a yes from somebody else, then you may not want to follow up with the rest of the people. But that's it for today. The 3 critical components of effective follow-up in Hollywood. And this is my first episode of Smart Marketing Minutes. Have a great day and go market yourself.